Hey, what's up guys, Craze here, welcome back to No Man's Sky. I hope that you're all having an excellent day, sitting safe at home and taking care of yourselves, because these are some really crazy times that we are living right now. And yeah, to make things pass a little bit faster and to have a little bit more fun, in this video I'm going to go over the ultimate beginner's guide for No Man's Sky in 2020. I fully believe that No Man's Sky is one of the best games you can play right now, especially if you're looking to sink a ton of time into something, but even better if you're looking forward for all of that exploration that you cannot do around these times. As always, if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super awesome, but in the meantime I also want to congratulate our March giveaway winner for winning a free copy of Borderlands 3 Super Deluxe Edition. So yeah, don't worry for everybody else who didn't get a chance at winning anything yet, there's going to be more coming up really soon, but in the meantime I also want to give a huge shout out to Instant Gaming for helping me with these giveaways. So let's get started with the top 16 things that everybody in the game should be doing, and even more so if you're starting from the very beginning. First of all, start mining cobalt in caves. This is going to be the first source of money that you're going to be able to earn. It's really easy, just set your eyes upon any cave, especially ones that have a ton of rocks around them, start mining them, a couple of stacks would be enough, and from this point on you can either sell them for quite a nice amount of profit, about 500,000 units per 10 minutes of farming, and you can also crash the market since most economies out there do have a ton of cobalt on the marketplace. You can just go in, sell your stash, crash the market, rebuy it at a heavily discounted price, and continue to sell the same stack in different systems over and over again until you're basically a millionaire. Now, if getting down and dirty is what you prefer doing in order to earn your money, then look no further than Salvage Technologies. As a matter of fact, this is my go-to money-making method early on, even compared to Storm Crystals farming or Alien Eggs, and there's a few good reasons for why that is the case. First of all, almost all of the planets in No Man's Sky have a ton of salvage tech on them, so these are some really easy to come by resources. Second of all, there's no real danger that you have to encounter along the way in order to gather these, and finally they still sell for a ton of units at the market, about 750,000 units for a full stack of 15 of these, and about 10 minutes of farming will yield about 4 to 5 of these full stacks, so that's an easy 2 million plus units in no time. And if you don't sell all of them, you can still use these after that to unlock other technologies that are going to be super useful later in the game. Moving on next, eventually as you progress in the game you're going to find nanites to be a really important resource, as this is very important right now even to get a second living ship and upgrade it, as well as all of the other upgrades and technologies that you will want for your character and your entire fleet. So the absolute best way to get a ton of nanites in a very short amount of time, the legit way, is to actually salvage starships of B+ quality at your nearest space station. The best way to do this is to do it in tier 3 wealthy economies, and even more so with explorers and shuttles, since these tend to cost not that much, just a few millions for each of these ships. But again, this will all yield you a bunch of materials, and the most important over here will be those upgrade modules, which you can then sell at the local NPC in order to get some nanites. About 10 minutes of farming will give you about 10,000 nanites, with the average per hour being around 50,000 nanites. So this is going to last you for pretty much everything in the game that you might want, including upgrading other ships, which again is a very expensive endeavor. This brings us to number 4. As a result of salvaging starships, you will also get something called storage augmentations. You can go in and sell these, since this makes most of the money that you'll be getting back, but you might also want to hold on a few of these, especially for a ship that is very close to being fully upgraded for its slots, because yeah, the last few slots will cost over 200 million units and the storage augmentation costs about 95,000 units. So you can see there's a huge difference over there. You can pretty much bypass that huge cost with just a bunch of these storage augmentations later in the upgrade cycle. Now moving on to number 5, we have the Quicksilver, an even more important resource than everything else up until now, and there's only 2 reliable methods of actually earning this, either from the dailies, the daily missions on the Nexus, or from the weekly events that Hell Games sets every weekend. The dailies stack up to 4 for your character, so if you're not playing 4 days consecutively, you're gonna see 4 of these pretty much being available to you about that time, but it doesn't stack past 4 of these. So every 4 days you might want to complete all of them, since they take very little time to actually complete, or you might want to spend like 5 minutes each day to complete them on a daily basis. The weekly event only happens during the weekend, so if you miss this one, it's missed and you cannot get the same reward, but this also gives you like more Quicksilver, about 1000 plus, so it might be worth it to log like every week, especially during the weekends, complete 4 dailies as well as the weekly one, and get like 2000 plus Quicksilver in no time. Moving on to number 6, I'm getting asked by a lot of people how am I able to switch my character's perspective so easily without accessing the quick menu or switching instantly between multi-tools, doing emotes or summoning my ship, and the answer is really simple. It's due to this quick bind thing in the quick menu that you can do ever since I believe the Beyond update, but I'm surprised not many people know about this. You can basically quick bind any quick menu action using any key from 0 to 9. So the easiest way is to just go in and choose your preferred actions from over there. Normally I quick bind my camera to number 1, my multi-tools to 2 and 3 to switch between them, number 4 is to switch my character's perspective, number 5 for my ship perspective from first person to third person, and from 6 and onwards it's pretty much any emote that I find useful, since these are the ones that I'm using more often, like saying hello to another player or just doing that really annoying dance that's probably getting a lot of people pissed right now. Number 7, eventually as you progress through the game you might want to settle down on a very beautiful lush planet, and this is something that happens really rarely. First of all, lush planets in general are more rare than the other planets, and second of all, it's even more rare to actually get a decent one that both looks good, doesn't have any sentinel activity, and even more so doesn't really have any annoying weather. So just know that this is gonna take a little bit of time until you actually find the perfect planet, but there's a few things that you can do along the way to make that hunt easier. First of all, always look for these lush planets in yellow systems with at least 4 or 5 planets into it, for 2 reasons. First of all, because yellow systems don't really spawn anomalous planets, which means you have a much lower pool of planets to pick from, and second of all, because if you have a high count of planets, well, you're gonna have a higher chance to actually also encounter a lush planet. From here on, also look for planets with moons. There's a high chance for moons to actually be fully covered with lushness, and it's basically by far the best lush celestial body that you can find in this game. It tends to not have any bodies of water, it also tends to have less problems with the sentinels and even more so with the weather, so this is why I've also settled down on a lush moon. And finally, also look for the water indicator, since this mostly refers to lush planets with oceans, though you will have to deal with the oceans, but this is generally what I'm doing in order to find all of these lush systems that you see me playing into. Moving on to 8, do a few of these changes in the networks menu, especially if you have a base that tends to be visited by a lot of players. First of all, can add base parts, can delete base parts, and finally can edit base terrain should be set to no one. This is going to prevent anybody who might want to either edit the terrain or delete or even add to your currently existing base. These are absolutely important if you don't want to see your base pretty much being destroyed by somebody else who might want to grief you. Everything else from there, like player damage, text chat, voice chat, and everything else in between, is just a matter of preference, but these 3 right here are super important for you to turn off if you want to prevent some really big headaches. Moving on to number 9, this is a one-time trick only that works for the early game, but as you play it, eventually the game is going to require you to build your first base as well as the base computer, which costs chromatic metal. For getting chromatic metal early on, you will have to also craft a terrain editor tool and go in and search for copper. There's actually a really easy way to bypass about 10 minutes of this, and that is of course by actually salvaging your rocket launchers in your starter ship, since this is going to give you 100 copper that you need, and you can refine that into 50 chromatic metal. That is more than enough to actually build your first base computer. Moving on to number 10, set up a mining colony as soon as that's possible for you, because this is by far the best money making method currently in the game, and it's also completely passive active past its initial setup, so just look for any blue systems with planets that list either indium or activated indium under their description, set up a colony, and you have to start small, just a few extractors here and there, a few silos, a mining grid, and that's enough to set you up even for a medium-sized mining colony that will earn you tens of millions of units per day, if not hundreds if you're setting it up properly. And this also brings us to number 11, which is setting up freighter farms. This is a huge freighter out there that we're talking about. It's gonna give you a ton of space to actually settle down all of these planters that you can use, and of course, since it doesn't require any energy to power it up, it's even better for you. My favorite right here is to just craft circuit boards, since all I need is star bulbs and cactus flash in order to craft it, so pretty straightforward. And again, I just have to wait the timer to run out, log in the second day, craft all of my stuff from the plants, and sell it for a huge amount of profit at the market. Moving on to number 12, I've said this in the past, but food is also very important in this game, especially on survival or permadeath, and there's two very good and easy recipes that you can get early on that will give you buffs to sprinting, but even better, to jetpack boosting. These are of course the mystery stew and the bread recipe, which require some really common materials. For the mystery stew, it's really easy. All you need is a source of meat, so just go in and sacrifice a bunch of animals, and you can quickly just use 2 stacks of meat to craft directly the mystery stew without going into any additional process. This mystery stew is also going to give you boost to your sprint, so for the next 10 seconds after eating it, your sprint is not going to be depleted and you can use it without having to worry about that. The second one is going to be bread, and for this you're going to require frost crystals as well as Fecium. The frost crystals will be broken down 2 times up until you get refined flour. Meanwhile, the Fecium can be broken down into yeast, and then you can combine all of these into the dough and finally refine it into the bread I was talking about. And of course, this bread is going to give you that jetpack boost I was talking about, and for the next 10 seconds after eating bread, your jetpack is not going to be depleted, which means you can use it pretty much like the deuterium plants that you can find normally on planet surface, but this time it's way more convenient and it's on demand. And number 13, try to get a personal refiner installed on your exosuit as soon as possible, since this is one of the most convenient installable tech that you can get for your character, since it gives you access to a refiner in any given location. I definitely recommend getting scrap metal from all of these green boxes, since you can break that down into really easy ferrite dust without actually having to go in and mine anything, and also oxygen that you can also break down into carbon, and you don't have to worry about 2 of the most basic resources in the game by just gathering some of these. Number 14, if you're looking to get some glyphs really fast, look no forward than the actual main story, the Awakening storyline, and one of the last missions in the game is going to actually put you on a path that is going to reward you all of the 16 glyphs in the game. So don't go in, rush it by talking to anomaly NPCs. This is not a really good method. The best way is to just finish the Awakening storyline, and this is going to reward you all of those glyphs without having to worry about missing any of these. Just a small heads up for everybody who is trying to get those portals up and running. And finally, number 15, intergalactic travel is now possible, even if you, for example, chose to travel to the core and go into the next one, or if you want to go back into Euclid. So there's a few ways to do this. Of course, if you have bases set up in different galaxies, now you have the possibility of visiting all of them, and also as a consequence go back into your previous galaxies. Or otherwise, if you want to go back just to Euclid, you can always use the Nexus portal over there to go back to a featured base that more often than not is from the Euclid galaxy. So why this is important is because a lot of the missions, like for example with the living ship, required you to actually go back into Euclid, since that was where the address for certain planets was for. So this is the reason why you might want to do that. But with this, I'm pretty sure we have covered all bases in terms of everything that you should know early on. Probably there's a lot more that I could have covered, but for the time being, this is gonna set you up really good for the majority of the game. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.